Today, I have with us a guest of honor, great friend of the channel, great friend of mine. I have Todd Sachs here with us today to talk about the housing market, to talk about the economy. Before I do that, let me plug him real quick. If you guys want to get a hold of Todd or listen to more of what he has to say, all you have to do is go to his YouTube channel right here, which is Sachs Realty. I mean, he has been interviewing some geniuses around the nation. Big props to you, Todd. And also, guys, if you're interested in purchasing real estate, here's Todd's website, saxrealty.com. Really great website, man. Very, very clean. He actually has a nationwide network. So if you're interested in purchasing property in various states, go here. But regardless, Todd Sachs, thank you for joining us today, brother. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for the plug. I appreciate it, Travis.
You know what, man? It's no problem, brother. I would have done that, regardless. I consider you a very dear friend. I mean, we've come up together, and it's been quite quite a ride, Todd. Absolutely, just baffling. Very humble, huge blessing being an influencer, helping people. I mean, we're covering a lot of ground, obviously. And Todd, where I want to start is, I'm starting to ask my guest a first question, which is, what is your definition? There's a lot of different definitions, right? But what is your specific definition of what a housing market crash is? What is that?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on at what, point you're talking about crash, right? So the definition would be when the market started falling apart or kind of peaked in May or June, depending on where you are, of 2022. That was, in a sense, the beginning of what I would consider a major correction, because we were seeing some really insane offerings from buyers. I mean, we were having 25, 30 offers, no joke, on a house, right? I mean, it was crazy. Standing room only in open houses. And I had said when this whole thing tipped that somewhere we would see about a 10% reduction. And it's really hard to see the way house prices have corrected, and they have corrected more than 10%. And in some markets and certain price points, we've seen 20, 25% correction since the peak of 2022, especially on the luxury homes, the luxury market, because all luxury homes, in my opinion, are overpriced because they're going towards they're attracting a certain audience with money, and one person's taste is not the other person's taste. But now when we talk about a real estate crash, I think of it being more of a 30% reduction or 40% reduction from peak to trough. And I think that's more practical once we start seeing this economic downturn that we haven't seen yet. And that would take us back to really 2019 prices. Now, of course, no one has a crystal ball, and I can't guarantee that. But what I can tell you is that when we're looking at year-over-year price increases, it appears that what's driving the price increases is the new construction market, because they're raising prices, and there's a whole game with that, but they're raising the list prices. And I believe in a lot of reasons for that is because they're giving rate buy downs of $50,000, by the time you buy down or truly buy down and get someone in the 5% range, 5.5% range. But, when you look at it, you say, what's a real estate crash? I think it's a multitude of things. I think it's when we start seeing loans being sold for the non-performing loans and the reperforming loans that Fannie Mae is selling. I think that's an indicator that a massive correction or crash is coming. When we start seeing, that increase, when we start seeing brokers having banks call them for broker price opinions, and we haven't seen that in years, really at the rate that it's escalating to now since 2008 GFC. But I think we're really headed towards a nasty correction, and I don't know what the government's going to do about it or the banks are going to do about it, because no one wants these asset prices to crash.
Well, some of us do, like the buyers on the sidelines, and some agents that want balance back into real estate. But you know what, Todd? I respect that. As I'm asking more and more people, what in their opinion a housing market crash is. I mean, the thing that is interesting is like the bigger this bubble gets, like the more that's needed for it to be a crash. I initially, Todd, and you know this, I defined, because no one back in the day was defining a crash. They were just saying, oh, it's going to crash or it's not going to crash. But what's your definition? Mine has been 15%. And I based that off from peak to trough. And I based that off of the GFC. When we look at the quarterly median and average during that time, prices went down 18 to 20%, depending on average versus median. So I was like, okay, well, if the biggest financial crisis of my life, if they went down 19, then 15% should be a good start. However, here's the thing, man. Now I'm starting to understand that home prices went up so much, Todd, that 15% in some of these metro areas that have already lost 15%, people don't feel it. Well, you feel it if you own a house, right? If you've recently purchased a house, you definitely feel it, but people aren't feeling it. And so now I may redefine my own definition of a full crash, Todd, because again, the 15% is just, we have many metro areas. I counted a minimum of 10 different metro areas that are already down 15% from peak. And so on top of prices going down over the last 2 years, that's the first time that's happened since the GFC. M2's gone down over the last 2 years. That's the first time that's happened in 100 years. I mean, we had the yield curve inversion. That's the first time that's happened, minus the lockdown since GFC as well. So we have a lot going on right now, Todd. You're saying 30 to 40% crash. You're also saying new homes are propping up the values of existing. And I would absolutely agree with you on that, especially when we consider that they are not making seller concessions. They are not reducing seller concessions through the appraisal value as required by Fannie Mae. And I also liked how you said the fraud. The fraud's all over the place right now. I just read something from Fannie Mae that basically blacklisted 2 title companies because they were running a fraud scheme for elevating property value. And so there's a lot of stuff going on here, Todd. I want to ask you this question. Moving on to price discovery, we had, for the first time since the GFC, we had home prices decline for the first time since the GFC. Like you said, after the peak, May to June of 2022, home prices went down on a nationwide level. It hit almost 13%. That's the first time that happened in the GFC. But overall, not in every metro, it rebounded in 2023. That price discovery was taken from us, was taken back in 2023. Could you maybe hypothesize, Todd, on why it's taken so long for us to get our price discovery back? Like, what are the 70% of Americans willing to pay for? We already know people migrating from California to Texas are willing to pay whatever, but what are everyday normal Americans willing to pay? We don't have that price discovery, Todd. Why?
I think that, well, just to kind of backtrack for a minute, I think that when we're looking at a price correction or a price crash in housing, we need to see an elevated inventory level, which we haven't seen. So when you're talking about that rebound, a lot of it is because domestic migration was a big push. The people that are moving to certain states, they're keeping those prices high. Certainly, the job market has been relatively strong. So I think that in order to see, no, we're not getting $50,000 and $100,000 over appraisal escalation clauses or the kind of overpaying that we saw prior to May, June of 22. But we are still seeing the strong price market. We're not seeing it tremendously weakened because we haven't seen the inventory. But I think that's coming. So I think to answer the rebound, we're just looking at a limited supply and there are more people out there. And I will also say that a lot of it is the real estate agents are overinflating this market by pressuring buyers to make offers that they don't need to do. And I've seen it myself to where you can look at a property that goes on the market. Yeah, it's still going under contract in less than a week, for instance. However, we still are seeing it now going 5,000 over or 9,000 over asking price, depending on what the price point is. And a lot of that is because The agents are saying, if you want it, you have to give them more than what they want. And in a lot of cases, it's just not true. If you're only getting, so let's just put it into, a more, basic explanation. If I'm selling a house, and let's just use simple math, at the list price is $500,000, $500,000, and I'm getting 25 offers, there's a certain percentage of those that will be extremely high, ridiculous, right? When it's 25 of them. We're not seeing 25 offers. We're seeing 3 or 2. Now, what's the percentage of the buyers that are overpaying or need to be ridiculously overpriced or overpriced at all? The only reason they are is because a lot of this is because the agents are still pushing that. It's competitive. It's a multi-offer. The agent puts in all bids due by Sunday at 6:00. We're in a situation with that right now with one of our buyers. Okay, well, there may only be 2 offers. One of them may be horrible as far as their credit. So, I think that a lot of what we're seeing right now is just still a spinoff of agents that don't sell enough real estate to understand that they don't necessarily need to practice what they did the last time they sold a house a year ago.
Yeah.
So I think that, but the biggest thing is, and this is one of the biggest problems, Travis, the media. We know that people are extremely in debt. They're financially tapped. In fact, I had a friend of mine tell me something and I didn't even realize, but look at a lot of the license plates that are driving down the road. They're expired. I don't even think they're pulling people over for expired tags. People aren't renewing their tags. People, if you have to get emissions testing, a lot of them are not doing emissions testing on their cars. Something as simple as that. So we're starting to see where people are a lot of them are out for repossession, but there isn't enough repo guys to repo the cars. Yeah. The defaults are so high. Why is it that the mainstream media would want to play a role in prices going higher? Why are they even covering this stuff where, they're saying, well, Redfin says, or Zillow says? Why are they even saying prices are expected to go up 5% in the housing market? Why would they cover such a thing?
Sponsors.
And lay those expectations on these buyers that are broke, that are saying, oh my gosh, if I'm going to buy a house, I need to go. We can't spend any other money. We just need to buy the house.
Yep.
That is so when you're looking at all these forces, we should not be publicizing that the market is just going to continue to climb. It is adding to the pressure on the buyers. It is not allowing the market to play out. And unfortunately, I think the only way that that's going to happen is that we start to see, it go the other way to where people just give up. And I think we're going to see the inventory hit.
Well, I would say, Todd, people are already giving up, man. Especially the 70% of the buyers on the sideline, but also the sellers. And I really want to just kind of run back on what you were saying about the price discovery thing, just for the viewers. And I think that you hit the nail on the head with the first thing, Todd. Because of the high interest rates, we've locked out both sellers and buyers. So the housing market's kind of frozen right now. And to get the price discovery, we need normal inventory back. So we need to figure out what normal people are willing to pay for a house. And if buyers aren't willing to pay what the prices are right now, then they're not going to pay those prices. Prices will go down. And it takes 2 comps. It takes 2 comps in a subdivision to change the entire trend. You can have one foreclosure and one seller that needs to sell and sells for under market, and the whole subdivision is potentially crippled. So on top of inventory, that's a really good one. And I will say also, I definitely feel like inventory is a good one, Todd. Job market's a really good one, although some people would say it's not strong. You guys are crazy. But I say that the job market is strong in the sense that people can still get part-time work. During the GFC, we didn't even have part-time work. If during the GFC I get part-time work, I would work 20 hours a day. to survive through my turmoil, but I just couldn't get a job back then. So the job market's really good. But I really like how you brought up, and I'm proud of you for this, man, the agents and the lack of client representation. It's like they're trying to represent their commission. They want to close, so they convince buyers to just bid up a little bit more, put a price on your home, marry the house, date the rate. If you don't buy right now, someone else is going to buy. I mean, they're giving in to the expectations of the sellers when they should really help their clients, like, hey, no, just walk away. Or don't bid that. My clients, for example, I'm under contract as well. I had a client go under contract yesterday. I constantly told her, no, bid less, right? Bid less, ask for more, bid less, ask for more. And then hopefully you reach something in the middle. So that's really good. And then also the media, man, I mean, these economists, sometimes I listen to them. I mean, it's just, to me, it's so clear that they're being paid to push a specific narrative. And then certainly all of those things combined is creating a more of a lag effect, right? A lag effect for this price discovery, a lag effect for this bust. And those are some things. You said that there are many factors, Todd. What about this factor? Okay, because I asked myself, Todd, where's the money coming from? I'm like, oh my God, everyone's waiting for the market to crash. The consumers are waiting to get, affordable prices. Half the people are broke. 70% of people living paycheck to paycheck. Where the hell is the money coming from? So I had a deep dive, and I just want to find a deal of my dreams. I want to help people find a deal of their dreams. I don't want to know this, Todd, but I did a deep dive, and I'm like, oh my God, the government spending. What impact, Todd? Hey, because you've talked to a lot of people recently. You're Mr. Famous now. I'm so proud of you, man. I mean, but you've talked to just absolutely brilliant people. Can you talk about what effect do you think deficit spending is having on propping up this whole show, economy, housing market, the deficit spending? Can you go into that?
Well, I want to first go back and talk about when the buyers, where you said you just had a buyer and you're telling them to spend less, to put in less of an offer, ask for more, and things like that. What an agent has to, the communication is extremely important, because what the agent has to do is, they need to educate the buyer, but there's a fine line on whether you're telling a buyer to pull the trigger and make the sale or not, right? What I try and do, and I think this is important advice out there for home buyers. Number one, you have to be able to afford it, right?
Yes.
This 5, 6, 7 times earnings for the house doesn't work. When we look at tenants, we don't want the rent to be any more than 1/3 of their salary, right? So what happens is we should really be doing the same thing with buying a house. We shouldn't be taking it to 5, 6, 7 times, 8 times earnings, stressing ourselves out, being unrealistic just to get qualified, and then know that you need a car within a year, and that's going to take you over the edge. I would argue that 70%, you said 70% of the people were living paycheck to paycheck. I would argue that probably is extremely low. I think it's way higher than that. I think that even the top income earners are living paycheck to paycheck because they're in debt up to their eyeballs.
Yep.
But here's what I want to say before we start talking about deficit spending. What I want to talk about, because the government can make money out of thin air. They can just print money. But I think that if you're going to overpay for a home, and what would overpay be? Overpaying would be anything over what you need to actually buy the house. So, if you decide that you want to over ask price on the house or not ask for certain things in a limited inventory environment, it better check all your boxes. Yes. And it better be extremely updated and well put together if it's an existing home, that you're not going to have to go in to a money pit and spend a bunch of money later. So you better really make sure you have a home inspector that is top notch. And I'm not talking about somebody who just took a course. And, no offense to those 25-year-olds that are home inspectors that just took a course.
Oh my
But I'm
God.
talking about a real home inspector that's a
Yeah.
contractor. I would have every trade, a heating and air contractor, an actual roofing contractor, check the roof,
Yep.
an actual electrician, and an actual plumber. And I would
Yeah.
scope sewer lines
Yep.
and all kinds of stuff. If you're going to overpay, then
Yeah.
get what you deserve.
I wanted to say, bro, and I know you know me. I know you're just making a point for the viewers, but I'm not just saying, oh, go less for the sake of going less. I'm pulling comps, and the comps that we pulled. I mean, we got such a good deal on this house.
Yeah, and
But
I
we're
wasn't
using
referring
data,
to
you
you.
know. Yeah.
I
Okay. Yeah.
wasn't
In general,
referring to you
and
or
then
your deal. I was just making an example of what you're saying,
yeah,
that
I
as
know.
agents, and I
Yes.
know, Travis, you know what you're doing,
Yes.
but I'm just saying, as agents, we have to be very careful
Oh yeah, man.
that we're killing a deal.
Yeah.
And then what I always say to people is this, and this is my favorite quote: Travis, you know, you're going to put in the list price is 500,000. I don't think you need to pay that, but I'm not going to make that decision for you. You want to buy it. You know, so here's the thing, you know, like, should I
Yeah.
pay more? And I say, Travis, if you wake up
No.
tomorrow morning and you lose the house for $3,000,
Okay.
$5,000, will you be upset? And if they
Yeah.
say yes, and I say,
Yeah.
well, then, you know, that's up to you. I mean, I can't
Yeah.
be the one
No.
to, you know, you're not going to blame me because I prevented you from buying a house.
No, it's Todd,
You,
it's their decision, and it is a big decision. And I also want to say, like, you know, and me and you talk about this all the time. I think, you know, bottom line, what you're saying is pretty much everything is overpriced. So if you're gonna overpay, if you're gonna buy a primary residence, it's okay, maybe in some situations, as long as you can afford it, to overpay a little bit. But you better make sure. You better make sure you don't have buyer's regret. You better make sure that the pipes are good. I have a hydrostatic test on Wednesday being done for my client as well, because like you just said, like they know they're overpaying. Even though we got prices to 2021, they're overpaying. So they want to make sure the bones are as strong as humanly possible. I think what you're saying is great. And I really hope people are waking up to really what you're saying, Todd, is you didn't mention one word about emotion. Not one word about emotion. You're warning people, hey, careful, some agents aren't like me. Some agents aren't like Travis. You got to take care of yourself. You know, use the data, make sure you can afford it. You know, and then we're going to go into price discovery next. Do you want to say anything else though about what?
yeah,
What
so I'll give you an example. So I have a client that's looking at a $450,000 new construction, and they said, you know, hey, you know, the lender isn't offering anything for these folks because they don't have the physician loan that my clients want. So they were offering the rate buy down, 30-year fixed rate buy down, which costs them a lot of money, but now they're not offering anything. And the other part is that a lot of these builders are doing build as is. Basically, they're not letting, a lot of them are just building them, not letting any buyers have input. So you can't pick your color or your cabinets. You can't pick your
But you can
floors.
do an inspection though, right?
You can do an inspection.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, if you want lot, you know, 150, they already have lot 150 under construction. And this is a DR Horton community too, man. They are actually building these houses completely on speculation. They ain't stopping. So they are prepared to build the inventory. And it just so happens that they're selling. And the way they're doing it is they're restricting how many can be sold at a time. And this is the game, right? So you cruise on over to the new home community. You're like, oh man, this is beautiful. I like this.
And this is in your market, right? This is in Maryland,
yes.
Which is way different than Texas. It's for the viewers. Okay, in my market, we are flooded with new homes. Todd is in a very like we talk all the time, Todd and I joke with Todd all the time, like, hey, do you want me to call your buyers and help you? Because my market is more of a buyer's market. And on top of that, Todd, that's existing. We also, it's an extreme buyer's market with new homes. But in your area, dude, you don't have that. You got to deal with these horrible, crappy games where almost buyers don't get any incentives, right? At least they don't have to do like, appraisal gaps at this point.
Well, here's what they do. You want to buy it? Okay, here's the deal. We're only going to sell we're going to release 4 houses. Yeah. And there are May move-ins. You need to put a $5,000 deposit down and give us either a pre-approval letter, or you need to be pre-approved by our lender. And then we'll send you the contract when we can. because they're not letting us sell it yet. So they're really controlling the sale.
Wow. That's messed
They're
up,
controlling
Todd.
the inventory. They're controlling the inventory.
You must get so upset dealing with these agents. I know you do. I know you do, because you're a fair person. You want to negotiate. You want to get your client a great deal, but you can't always do that in your market, can you?
Well, these are employees of the builder. So I mean, you want to talk about, at least you have a chance to negotiate or try and get some insight from the other side. Like if it's an agent listing the property that, has commission breath and they know they're having a difficult, time selling a property, they'll tell you things that they shouldn't.
Yes,
But these new home salespeople, man, they are good. They keep the pressure hot, man. They don't sweat. They don't have anything to lose. They're getting paychecks.
Yeah, I wish consumers knew. Todd, like the hard part is like some consumers, there's a percentage of people that are listening to us and they're learning, but there's also a large percentage of consumers, Todd, that like they will hear what we're saying, but they still won't do the due diligence needed to protect themselves unless they go through it. Consumers, you don't need to go through the pain. And I hope that's why you're watching Todd. I hope that's why you're watching us. I mean, we're using the data, we're using the data. Todd, I mean, Todd, I don't envy your market. Not at all, Todd. I don't know. I mean, I would bet it's hard for you to function. Do you get in arguments?
Inventory come up every day. We're seeing inventory come up, and we're seeing agents freaking out. So I mean, they're freaking out because they thought that their house was going to sell on the first day.
Yeah.
And in many cases, we're looking at over a couple of weeks, which is a real shocker. I mean, the sellers are actually thinking. The sellers are starting to think, this is existing homes. Sellers are starting to think, man, people don't want my house.
Yeah, good. Todd, do you ever argue with the agents? Do you ever get any arguments out there with those agents? Or not really?
I try, you're going to run into the same agents over and over and over again. So the biggest thing that I have to do, Travis, is their work for them. So I think that's the worst part is if you want to get it done, a lot of times, I mean, I just entered into a contract. And I had to go, 3 times through this.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't fill this out, or you didn't do that. You didn't do this. You didn't do.
Were you representing the seller? You were representing the seller.
Repping the seller. Yeah. So I mean, it's one of our
got the
clients,
contract.
Tax Realty. Yeah, and so it's like you have to, you just get to the point where you're just like, I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I know, man.
So you can't really argue with them. Where I get really frustrated is when I can't get a hold of them. They're great until the contracts are signed, and then sometimes you can't get a hold of them.
Yeah.
And they're really nice until you really need something, and then you're days upon days trying to get it. And a lot of the stuff, I mean, it's tying up the lender.
Yeah, and I'm lucky right now, man, because the realtor that I'm working with, solid champion. I mean, he's been doing it for 30 years. He's like, Travis, whatever I need to do, he's texting me at 10 o'clock at night. I'm just like, God, man, like give it a rest. It's 10 o'clock on Saturday. But I mean, the guy he's on it, man. And it makes such a big difference when 2 agents can get along, because then you can bring the clients closer together. So what we decided, because my clients they're going to do some renovations and they really want to make sure that the bones and the hydrostatic testing, and they have all these questions. Dude, we're going to have the buyer and the seller meet and talk. And we're going to allow the buyers to ask the sellers questions about the house, because everyone's good people. The agents are good people. His clients are great people. My clients are great people. We can have a civil conversation. And when I was thinking about how rare it is to sit both parties in the same room to just have a humane conversation about the house. Who that is buying an existing house wouldn't want to talk to an original owner about the house? If you care about the house and you want to know about stuff, you're going to want to talk. So, but it is rare, Todd. I mean, I was so surprised with this client because I hit probably 3 back-to-back-to-back solid agents. That's probably the first time in 20 years. Normally, it's like you call 3 people and you get the 4th one to answer, right? So, I mean, things are changing, but in some metros like your metro, that price discovery is still not there. And I ask again, I go back to where's the money coming from, the lag, right? I mean, we have all this money printing still. They're supposed to be doing quantitative tightening. The government's fighting itself, almost fighting the Fed. We have all this deficit spending. I mean, don't you think that all of this money injection, whether it be from deficit, whether it be from inflation, maybe it be from these geopolitical situations, these wars, don't you think that is keeping things propped up? I mean, because when you give money to go fight a war, they're going to take that money, they're going to spend it in America, which creates jobs and it creates merchandise. So people have work. And so therefore, it does have an impact in one way or the other. What are your thoughts on that? And will it ever stop? Are they just going to keep spending until the dollar just evaporates, Todd? I mean, what the hell's going on, man, with the dollar? What the hell's going on with the printing?
I talk to a lot of people that are way smarter than me when it comes to the economy and the dollar, the value or the devaluing of the dollar. There's arguments on both sides of the aisle. I'm not convinced on gold and silver or crypto. I mean,
Right.
I don't think, when I look at this, I go, okay, I can't imagine. First of all, I don't personally think that the dollar is going to collapse anytime soon. I mean, that's just my own personal, from speaking with a lot of these people, my own opinion. Okay, so you go out and you buy physical gold and silver. What are you going to do with that? You're going to store it in your house, and that seems dangerous to me. You can't tell. And how do you know you're even getting the real stuff? I mean, and we're in a world of just where
fraud.
What is really real? I mean, what is real? So now all of a sudden you buy a bunch of gold-plated whatever. I'm not smart enough to figure that all out. Or take all of my cash and not have any because of that. I think that the deal is still, I believe that you should try and be out of debt. So I think, more importantly than worrying about the dollar collapsing is if you're going to eliminate your dollars, pay off your debt.
Yes.
Start with that, because you're doubling and tripling what you're paying for something, and sometimes more because you're only paying minimum balances on credit cards. So if we're going to have an argument on the dollar, the devaluing of the dollar, pay off your debt.
Yeah, no
Get
doubt.
to be debt free, then worry about it. Don't panic about it now, in my opinion.
I'm debt free. Can I panic about it, Todd? I'm debt free.
Yeah, I mean, if you're debt free, it's a great place to be, right? I mean, it's that
Right.
that I don't want to. I mean, the banks are, in my opinion, they're the evil ones, in my opinion. Anyway, I look at it and I go, okay, they entice you to spend, buy now, pay later. Need I say anymore?
Oh my God.
I mean,
yeah.
Okay, and now you have the whole world. I get it. When you're investing in real estate, leverage, stuff like that. But tell that to the people that lose everything when the market changes, or, their interest rates change and now they're no longer cash flowing. I think we're going to see some massive fallout from people that are in debt, because, I mean, they're going to come after your assets, man. I mean, if you're in debt, eventually the banks are going to come get what you own. And who wants that?
And on top of that, Todd, I mean, one late payment, your credit's done. Your purchasing power is shot.
You don't need credit if you pay for stuff.
And most people don't, and the whole society is ran on credit.
If you're not going to use banks.
I mean, the game is just trapping people, man. So let me ask you a couple more questions. This one is important. I know you've been thinking about it a lot. You've been talking about it a lot. You've been researching a lot. Are we going to have, by your definition, 30 to 40%? Are we going to have a housing market crash, Todd, on a nationwide average?
I think it's going to be regional. I don't think we're going to see a 30, 40% all across the board, in my own opinion. Again, I have no crystal ball. I originally called for a 10% correction. If you go back to my very first videos in April of 2022, way before, months before we had the peak, I put out something that said, that a buyer's market was coming. It takes, I take a lot of criticism, a lot of heat, because people, want to say that I'm a crash bro or doomer. And I think, Travis, they put you in that category as well. And it's not a matter of, whether, I don't want to be right or wrong, but it's a matter of timing. I mean, they've done everything they can to prop up this economy, and I understand it, right? But I think that a lot of it, it's just going to get to a point where it doesn't work anymore, and it's going to show up. We will see the corrections because the people can't afford it. But if you look at a place like where I am in Maryland, what I think that we would see a 30 or 40% price correction only on very non-livable, non-habitable properties, in my opinion, will we see that kind of price correction where an investor does need to go in and completely redo the house. And one of the reasons is because, I mean, look, we're the land of the milk and honey with the government jobs. I mean, if you look at who's hiring, where all this spending is, in job creation is in the government jobs, and we're right outside of DC, and we have a lot of military. We have obviously our national security agency. We have a new FBI headquarters that's getting ready to be built in Maryland. So we're seeing the job growth from the government employee, from the government sector, like nobody's business. I mean, it's really increasing. So, would that change if we had a different administration? I wouldn't think so. I don't think that they're going to stop government spending and get rid of God. I don't care what they would say to get into the office, but I think they're not going to eliminate these government jobs again.
Yeah.
My opinion.
So Todd, so what regions would you say are the biggest at risk of a crash? You're certainly saying that the East Coast, although top heavy, it may not have that 30 to 40%, whereas other regions might. What other regions are you thinking are the biggest at risk?
Well, I think certainly as people are getting called back to work, areas where jobs, you don't have, major employers, where people move to more rural areas, we may see that in Maryland too, but in specific markets. I'm really concerned about Arizona, Florida. I mean, Vegas, Nevada, some of the markets that you cover hot and heavy. I think that a lot of it, but take Florida, for instance, it's still a very desired area for retirees.
Mm-hmm.
You have 30 million baby boomers that could possibly be selling houses in the next 5 years. Where are they going to go? So I think there will be areas in Florida that will remain strong, though you may see a pretty big price correction in a lot of the state. I still think that there will be areas where these baby boomers will be downsizing, and they will keep those markets still probably very strong. And a lot of these have plenty of, I hate to use the word money, because now, a lot of the people that I interviewed, money, they consider to be gold and silver and currency, fiat currency. So they have a lot of fiat currency. We'll say that, but they have a lot of capabilities as of right now to keep prices high in certain markets that are very desirable for people to live. These retirees.
Now, Todd, do you have an area where is the biggest concern? I mean, you mentioned a lot of the West Coast areas, obviously Florida. Is there one spot where you're just like, dang, that has a whole bunch of stuff going on that it would be your biggest worry as far as a housing market crash?
I think I would look at the areas, the cities, the big cities like Philadelphia, Seattle, Washington, Portland, Oregon. Where you have fentanyl addictions that are at the highest. People are literally walking around the streets like zombies. Baltimore, Maryland. I mean, we have one of the highest crime areas in the country. I think that when you see that areas, when we look at what areas, when inventory is tight and money is cheap, people will, they'll go in areas that they wouldn't necessarily go if we see massive price reductions, right? So if they're picking places and that's been the pressure, they'll move into areas that they wouldn't have moved to because the inventory hasn't been there and the interest rates were low. So they were like, yeah, well, it makes sense because I'm paying what I would pay in rent, but now it doesn't make sense. So as we start seeing where rents are cheaper than buying, and you start looking at inventory opening up, and now you start seeing prices coming down, this is the progression, right? And now rents will be coming down. People will not pick these areas to move to that are very high, that are just riddled with crime and drugs. So I think the major cities are going to take the absolute worst hits. And we're seeing vacancy rates of office
Yeah.
buildings, and businesses are failing because of it. If you take a city and you fill it up with office workers, it supports the entire area because there's a factor of how many jobs one job makes in a city
Yes.
environment, right?
Community.
Because
Yes.
people will go and eat the coffee shops, the
Yes.
restaurants, you name it, right? That are supporting those workers. These businesses are shutting down left and right. These sandwich shops, these breakfast places, these coffee shops in these cities are closing up because the office employees aren't there to support them. And as now we're starting to see these board ups and these vacancies, they're going to be I think these are the areas that are going to take the biggest hits from a real estate perspective.
Yeah. And honestly, that's good because it's a good answer. And I say that because, and I don't know if you mentioned this, but net migration out. Migration is so important. Look at Boise. I mean, Boise is a little metro area in the middle of nowhere. It's not even remarkable like Salt Lake City, Utah, or Denver, or even Reno. And the migration into Boise exploded prices. So migration out is going to have some effects. And you know what, Todd? When I was listening to you, it made me like, I was asking, like, why do people hate so much? Like, if they don't share our opinion, like, or how could I show empathy to bulls, right? The other side of the coin. How do I show empathy? I could sharpen myself. And I think the division comes from this. The bulls think that zero interest rate policy is coming back. You and I are saying that, well, first of all, ZERP, right? ZERP, zero interest rate policy, is horrible. It's a massive failure. That's why we're in this situation right now. And the hard part is are they going to, or are they not going to? Right? I think a child could say, don't do that again. This is what happened, right? Don't do a zero interest rate policy. We need high interest rates. That's the economy. A great economy runs well on rates above 5%. Okay, we don't need this type of deficit spending and stimulus at 5% in a healthy economy. So the question is like, are they going to go back to zero interest rate policy, Todd? And if they did do that, I mean, do you think that a crash would be short-lived? Do you think it would be too late? What are your thoughts on the zero interest rate policy that kind of put us in this situation?
I think the interesting thing, to answer your question, I think anything's possible. Sure, I would see where they would go back to a zero interest rate policy or 1% or something ridiculous like that. What I believe, and again, I have been interviewing a lot of people in the world of finance.
Yes.
And trying to get their opinions on what's happening. And what the conclusion that I've sort of come around to on my own is that the game is to inject enough liquidity, print enough money, or inject enough liquidity into the banking system that the people that will pay their bills will continue to spend. Even if they don't have extra money, they will pay their loan payments if they're provided a loan. They're going to want to keep those people spending money. What will happen is they need to make sure that the pool that isn't paying their loan always remains smaller than the pool that will. So I think that to stimulate the economy, they'll print more dollars, they'll drop interest rates, they'll inject liquidity into the banks like they've been doing, which is certainly a form of quantitative easing, even though they're not saying that.
Yes.
Pump the banks with money and let them lend money. But again, the key is lend it to the people that have the jobs and will continue to make their payments. And then that softens the blow or the negative effect of the ones that are defaulting on their loans. They'll take the 30%, 40% haircuts on those, or just bail them out, or just put stimulus programs to bail them out so that we don't have a complete rot in the asset market of housing. So this is what we're up against. I don't know what these guys are going to do. What should they do? I mean, they should let the market correct itself so people can afford housing. But they don't. It's almost like they don't want the middle class to have wealth. They want to keep you working. During I just had this interview with Adam Taggart. It was interesting because, well, we were talking about like where did all this start? And I could go back and I open up a real topic that I just don't feel like defending in the comment section right now. But I will say this: the nucleus of the American household up until probably the 80s was that we had mom at home raising the kids, working at home, which is a very important role. It's an important job. We've turned it around to where, we're putting pressure, like that's what you do for a living. Oh, must be nice. It's almost like, well, your husband must make a lot more money. Must be nice that you can stay home and almost our society looks down on it. But if you just think about it, and I have nothing to do, I'm not trying to say that women don't have a place in the workforce. I think that women can do the job that any man can do. I think it's proven that they're underpaid when it comes to the genders. But here's what I am saying, and this is all my only point to this matter. We could live on one salary back then. So when we pry the adults out of the house, call it for whatever reason you want. Now they know two people are making salaries. Well, prices are going up. It's no different than our education system, our colleges. When the students had to go to the bank or go to the universities to get the student loans, and they had to put a lot of money down or pay, they didn't get 100% student loan financing that they didn't pay until after they graduate. When the government stepped in and said, I'll underwrite these students, it allowed the universities to raise all their prices. That's what really jacked the prices up when the government got involved. But the same thing with the household. We pry everybody out of the house that can work. Now they have to get jobs. Now we're in a financial position where, these kids, not kids, these young adults aren't having kids because they can't afford them. Because now two salaries don't even make it.
Yes.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. It's a bad deal.
It's despicable.
It is a bad deal. People are getting resentful. People are getting bitter, and people are confused, Todd. They don't know what's going to happen. They know that these other people that are strangers to us are really in control of the money printing. We know now that the money printing could really, really hurt us. We now, consumers, I'm saying now, know that we actually are the ones paying for that. I hope to God that America gets back to being American. I hope we get back to more than 70% of people being priced out. I hope we get back to where rent is the same, if not cheaper than owning. That was just 3 years ago. How are people trying to say I'm a bad person for cramming all this crap down that's happened for the last 3 years and saying, Travis, that's normal? No, it's not. That's far from normal. That's politicians succumbing to the immaturity and selfishness of children to get their votes. And they're trying to pass it on me and say, no, you're crazy, Travis. You better accept this because here's the new times. And I'm just like, I ain't accepting crap, man. I'm going to do me the way I need to do me. I'm going to continue to shop and work with principle. I'm going to continue to love my family. And I'm going to continue to like filter what I'm listening to. If I'm listening to things that are messing me up, I'm not going to listen to it. If I'm listening to things that are empowering me, I'm growing, I'm going to do that. There's so much noise out there, Todd. People are blinded. We've never had a time where people could empower themselves with such a great ability. Look at YouTube. People could learn almost anything, but I feel like there's such a few amount of people doing that because they don't know where to turn. If I look left, I have 15 people over here saying something. When I look to my right, I have 15 people saying something over here. So I have empathy. And the thing that I really don't like, though, is the people that are paid to push a narrative that they themselves don't believe. And a lot of those people are on mainstream media. You covered that. We all know that zero interest rate policy. I think most of us know that was a horrible, horrible thing. Like you were saying, the government purchasing mortgage-backed securities that artificially manipulates the market. So consumers, man, there may be consumers that are watching us, Todd, and listening to us, and they're like, dude, I got no hope. I can't climb up that hill. Look at what we're going against. What can we end on here, Todd? We've been talking 50 minutes. And maybe there's nothing positive you could say. Maybe you want to end on a tough love message, but what message of hope can you give consumers on the sideline or anyone that's bitter, anyone that's resentful, like, hey, this isn't the America I grew up in? What can you tell them, Todd?
Well, I think you said something that was very important, that we have to be careful what we're infiltrating into our minds, absorbing into our minds, because, even there is, look, this isn't all doom and gloom, Travis. I think you even have to be careful, I won't say be careful, but you have to limit the amount of even what we say on our channels, not from a standpoint that it's not, maybe true or not true, because I think this is just, we're talking about topics that need to be discussed. But you have to take what we're saying also with a grain of salt, because there are ways to overcome the environment that we're experiencing. You can get yourself out of debt. You can buy houses. You may just need to, not reach for the moon, right? Right now, maybe you put yourself into a more practical, realistic set of goals. Maybe you should just save money and just wait and work on just paying off your debts and things like that. So I think if you listen to the things that we're saying and you take it for what it's worth, there is a ton of hope, man. I mean,
Yes.
if you're blessed to have, great health, that you can get up every single day and go out and work. And, you have, I mean, that's a blessing, right? People that do have limitations, a lot of times these people excel and are even more positive than the ones that don't have the limitations.
Yeah.
So I think we have to keep ourselves in check. We have to understand that, we have to find happiness no matter what's happening. I mean, if you're in a wartime, I mean, think of what it would have been like in World War II, right? With, sirens going off and needing to turn off your lights and, get underneath the tables or, hide in closets and things like that. I mean, I don't think we're not there, right? So we just have to stay focused on the positive. It's who we love and who loves us. Build a community. We're not meant to live in life alone. And, let's just get rid of the hate. If you don't agree with what we're saying, that's fine. I encourage comments that are in disagreement with what we're saying. But let's not hate each other, right? Let's not hate each other. Let's love each other. Let's reach across the aisles. Let's find a way. And it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican or independent at this point. Let's get to the heart of the matter, that we're human beings. And, and start having love for one another. And I think if we focus on that, God, I think if we focus on that, we're going to get through no matter what comes our way. And no matter how many evil people there are in the world, we'll still find a way to be happy and get through life. And I think that's the takeaway, in my opinion.
Amen, brother. I'm going to end on that because I cannot top that. You guys, show Todd some love. Go over to his channel. Listen to what this man has to say. He has a very cautious approach. He's been doing real estate for longer than I have. But other than that, guys, we really hope you guys got some new value, insights, and perspective. And if you're out there investing in real estate, you know that we wish you luck and we hope you win.